Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Good afternoon and welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable. She serves, she matters. It's Saturday, March 19th, 2022. March is National Women's History and Disability Awareness Month. I am co-founder, veteran, Vietnam, and host Cliff Kelly.
Yes, the Honorable Cliff Kelly.
Thank you, sir.
I am his co-host, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold, and our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Digital media producer is the iconic Ivan Ortega of Scouts Iron Production. He's been doing a wonderful job with us today, as usual. And today we have an esteemed panelist, Shelia Jackson Lee, the Honorable Texas 18th Congressional District Congresswoman and America's Heroes Group Advisory Board member. She is a wonderful, wonderful representative for our country. Today our discussion will be celebrating, honoring, and empowering our military women. And how are you doing, Congresswoman?
Just outstanding. It's a pleasure to be with all of the honorables that are online today. Thank you so very much for having me.
Oh, fantastic.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, because we were actually working with a group earlier talking about the homeless veterans and some of the legislation you were a fundamental part of with the Secretary Marsh Fudge from the HUD, and you know how you actually got money accumulated for our veterans, a $1.2 billion bill that came through for homeless. And I just have to applaud you for that before we even start to talk about anything else.
That's right.
You know, we have people who are elected that don't act. They talk, they don't act, but you talk and act.
Right.
So we are so pleased to have you as a representative of this country.
Well, let me say this. I love our veterans. I have made it my really focus in the United States Congress to include veterans in all that we do. I'm very delighted that Secretary Fudge was able to be with us in Houston this past Monday and announced $2.7 billion for homelessness and including applicants from the veterans community, which are really extensive. And I'm excited that we made the announcement at the U.S. Vet. And in that room, it was so humbling. Were Korean War vets, Vietnam War vets, and yes, vets. And the joy expressed, because this was a facility for vets that would typically be homeless. Can you imagine a World War II veteran having to be in this place but being safe because he has a safe, loving, and welcoming place that acknowledges and respects his service to go to, and that comes out of federal funding. I also, in my efforts to work with vets, is focused every year on PTSD. People think it is going away, but it has not, and sometimes it comes later after the veteran or has been separated from service. And so I try to increase every year funding for post-traumatic stress disorder so that there are centers even outside of the veterans hospital system. And I have advocated and even started one in Houston, Texas, that was outside the hospital system, and always emphasizing that veterans, I introduced legislation that said that veteran service, the service in the military, should be equated to a level of service when they apply for a job, that they shouldn't be entry level. They should be looked upon as having the experience of the particular title and the particular discipline that they utilize inside the military. So I hope that everyone recognizes that we must honor our veterans every single day.
You know, Representative Lee, I had to say one thing. I said that when we were on the other show, they said $1.2 billion, and I was going to go out to give a toast. I'm not sure what I had to do now because you were saying $2.7 billion, so I have to up the ante with Cliff, and we have to do something spectacular.
We certainly do.
To celebrate your success and what you've done.
This is wonderful.
So, so celebrating, honoring, and empowering our military women, what does that mean to you, and why is it so important to our nation to realize this is something to focus on and be proud of?
First of all, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for opening up this opportunity to discuss women veterans. And I guess I should, of course, say that women veterans were in the room. I got hugs from a few of them who appreciated the fact that in these increasing years, and now in Women's History Month, but over these last years, we really stepped it up in the veterans hospital system, in the veterans system, to recognize women vets. And what this means to me is that the numbers started small, and it took the military a fairly substantial amount of time to sort of change direction, to be able to realize that there were women sailors, there were women Marines, women in the Army, women in the Air Force, women in the Coast Guard, Merchant Marines, women everywhere in the United States military. And, of course, we've seen a few ascend to the general level. I've met some, and it's very exciting. But what it means to me is that there is a place for women to serve their country as they have desired. We look back at the history, we remember the waves in World War II, and remember all those who wore the nursing uniform. We remember the ladies who went into the factories and could do a car or do a machine as fast as anyone else could. But now we hope that the fight is that it is to celebrate our women's veterans, to thank them. And keeping that in mind, I was one of the members of Congress who joined in the Veterans Hospital, Michael E. DeBakey, when they opened the Women's Health Center for women's vets. So very important. I introduced legislation that has been accepted in a defense authorization bill almost for 10 years, and that is triple-negative breast cancer, to do more research in the United States military about triple-negative breast cancer. And that deals specifically with women military personnel and then subsequently women vets. So the idea is to say that women vets have a historical and present-day place in serving their nation, and the services that are rendered on behalf of military personnel and families should equally be rendered for these women. And, of course, these women are excited about their service. They celebrate their service. They eagerly volunteer to be in the service. And so that must be acknowledged. And I know you know there have been some dark moments, some very dark moments in the military as relates to sexual assault and issues that really that none of us would want to associate with the military. But we have to clean it up. And you know the tragedy of the young officer, young military person from Texas, Gillian, who simply wanted, since a little girl, to be in the service. But in her name, good things are coming, and we know that we express deepest loss for losing her. But we hope that change through her life will be better for others.
Yes. You know, those assaults you're talking about, they are dishonoring the uniform, because if you are in the military, you know, you are supposed to be representing the people of the United States. When I was, you know, and doing my combat tours in Iraq and in, you know, Kuwait and other places, I you know, always didn't care about a person's ethnicity, their race, what kind of music they liked, what language they had in this country. As long as they were part of this country, we were fighting for them. And you cannot dishonor women who are serving next to you and still honor the people within this country, because the people within this country are the women and the men that you are protecting. So, you know, it's a fundamental problem that I think you pointed out, Representative Lee, about the need to look past this whole gender issue and start realizing that the person that's next to you is someone who is fighting for the right thing for democracy.
I think you've said it perfectly, and I hope everyone is hearing you when you say it dishonors the uniform and it dishonors America, because America is made up of men and women, boys and girls, with aspirations and dreams. And when we wear the uniform, when you wear the uniform, I feel such a kinship. But when you wear the uniform, you know, I always use in my speeches that the men and women who wear the uniform accepted the responsibility without and the willingness to sacrifice without complaint. They put on the uniform without complaint. They put on the uniform and accept the duty. They put on the uniform and accept the fact that they may lose their life for their country. And when that is the definition, then that person who steps out of that high calling dishonors the uniform and soils the very spirit of what the United States military is all about, because it is about sacrifice and service, and we do honor you for that.
Yeah, and one of my people that I, was very, familiar with and friendly with is this, the this Congresswoman. Oh boy, I'm just getting kind of emotional with it. But Tammy Duckworth.
Yes.
Because I was a flight surgeon in the military, and I just. I remember going across a bridge with her and presenting her the flag and all those kinds of things when she came back, after her ordeal. But what she sacrificed for this country was just tremendous. And people, had to realize what she went through. And you cannot take any honor or anything away from what she's done for this country. And, also when you were talking, you started making me think about what's going on in the Ukraine, and I just want to thank you and the bipartisan congressional members who have supported President Zelensky in the Ukraine in their efforts to preserve democracy overseas. I just applaud you all for what you've been doing. It's a very, very clear vision. I think that the steps that are being taken by the administration right now are the right ones to keep us in the right path and the right order. We sometimes take things for granted that you are doing in this nation. If you don't have any skin in the game, sometimes you don't understand what the skin cost. And so I just really applaud you for what you're doing right now. And over there also, there were women who were leaving the country, and they had men who were remaining to fight. But now women have been returning to join the ranks, and some women never left, and are also fighting on the front lines for democracy overseas.
Well, the Ukrainian military, you're absolutely right, has a large percentage of women fighters in it from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. Now civilian women who left are coming back to stand side by side with civilian men and the United States military. I thank you for that. This is real unity. This is no party difference. We are Americans as we stand for the bellwether of democracy in Ukraine. I was in Lithuania when the Russian troops began to come in. I was on the border of Lithuania and Belarus. I was, in fact, engaged with our soldiers who were in Belarus, interacting with them, talking with them, encouraging them, and thanking them for their service. I love engaging with the military when we're overseas, and I've done it almost every time that I've traveled, starting from 1995 when I traveled into the Bosnian War, which had not yet been signed or settled by the Dayton Peace Treaty. And so we went in under the French flag into Bosnia, Croatia, and the former Yugoslavia. And that was way back in 1995. Because I want to go and thank them personally. And that's what I was able to do. We were hoping that Russia would stand down. There were 30 to 40,000 troops there when we were there in Belarus, Russian troops. We had been talking to a number of leaders trying to see if Putin would not exercise his misdirected and misguided approach to Europe and, in fact, start this war, because it is his war. But we are united, and as you well know, the president just spent $800 million in very important weaponry, and at the same time, we listen intently, as I was there, to President Zelensky on Wednesday morning, and he has since spoken again, and we are listening. And again, I think at this point, we need the world to come together with China and to pressure Putin to get to the peace table. Mm-hmm. We need the world to come down on Putin now, because what it appears to be is that he is now out of control and seemingly is bent on literally destroying Ukraine brick by brick, block by block, and human by human. And we just can't allow his total destruction of this beautiful country. And so now I think the voices of the leaders have to be raised much louder and draw in whoever might be considered his ally. She, of course, is his most strongest ally. And if he has any credibility, any interest in having any world presence, he will get Putin now to get to the peace table.
You know, Congresswoman Shelia Jackson-Lee, I just have one request, and you know, maybe you can make a commitment to me. When they make a movie about your life, I want to go to the first showing because I'm thinking about all the things you're doing, and it's about time that they start looking at what you've been doing because you're just remarkable for what you have been doing for our nation and for our veterans, and I just can't applaud you enough for what you've been doing. And, you know, one of the things I thought about when you were talking is when President Zelensky said, "I don't need a ride, give me ammunition." And the first thing that came to my mind was that Hamilton, you know, play when he said, "Show me where the ammunition is." And that is a very, very strong leader, you know, to have said what he said. And we just have to applaud him for what kind of substance he's made out of, too. And as you said, the women in Ukraine, for their resolve to stand up for what's right. We saw pregnant women, you know, senior citizens. We saw children being killed by this devastating, evil person that's in Putin. And I'm glad that people in Russia are standing up for what's right too, because many of them are you know, Catholic. There are several religions represented there, Islamic religion as well. And you can't be a person or a follower of any religion that is of any worth and still support someone who is just doing mass slaughter.
You are so right. You're absolutely right on. And mass slaughter and murder babies, killing babies.
No.
So that's what I use. I try to be as depictive of what really happened as I possibly can. I'm going to say killing babies and seniors and disabled persons dead in the street, or a mother with her 2 children hit dead in the street, or a man, U.S. citizen, in the bread line, or 1,000 people in Mariupol who are trying to flee and be in a bomb shelter, and they get hit directly. Of 1,000 people, and they've only brought out 130. It just breaks my heart. It's got to stop. As far as I'm concerned, Putin is on a rampage. He's not fighting a war. He's on a rampage. And he doesn't care women, men, disabled, children, seniors. He does not care. They are on a rampage. So all I can say is that we must stand strong with them. And it is about autocracy versus a democracy. And here we are fighting for democracy, and we've got a willing leader. And you're right, tough as nails, President Vladimir Zelensky, tough as nails. And he loves his people. He has given them good guidance. He's encouraged them. He's stood with them. And frankly, I think that is an enormous tribute to him and to the people of Ukraine. They are standing there as strongly as they can.
Yes, and you know, we have to also thank our corporations who have been falling in line by withdrawing their support, you know, for Putin's war machine. So we've had multiple corporations come, you know, back out and say, you know, we cannot stand in a country, and they've been actually following President Biden's request and the congressional members' request to divest from a country leader that is, you know, an authoritarian oligarch who does not care about human life. And so we have to really applaud all of them as well. And we have about 3 to 4 minutes now to go. And I wanted you to really, you know, to highlight what should we as veterans be doing and the military itself to make sure that we're celebrating, honoring, empowering our military women. You know, what direction should we be doing? Should we be making sure that we show that the value of women in service by what we do through our actions?
Well, thank you so very much. I do want to mention that my longstanding legislation, the Violence Against Women Act, which impacts women veterans as they move into civilian life, has finally been signed by the president. It's a major legislative initiative against sexual assault and against domestic violence, which is one of the most deadly aspects of family life. And then I have a buddy legislation, like the Buddy on the Field, that provides resources for veterans to check on veterans. But I think when we think of women veterans, I think it is important to embrace them and all of the military veterans organizations that are post-United States, their service, rather, so post-United States military service, and to be as concerned about the Veterans Affairs addressing their needs and the Veterans Hospital, making sure that they have a strong commitment to women's health. Because for so long, there was not even a much attention paid to the fact that they were women veterans. And so women can be impressed by, or will be impressed by, their fellow soldiers, their fellow veterans, their male veterans, who will speak up for them and argue for them that they deserve equal services under this very weighty veterans system. And then, of course, to continue to engage with them as fellow soldiers when they are out of the United States military. I think that's what they want. And legislation is passed. It's passed for all veterans, but we also realize, as I have done on some of the women's health issues, that women veterans have particular needs, and we must address that. I want to close by saying homelessness plagues all veterans. But you see women veterans, and it's a very sad circumstance. Many times they're away from their family. Many times they're mothers, and they have children. And many times it's because of addiction. So we just know that we need to make sure that veterans are in our eyesight and that we continue to work to improve their quality of life, because they are the infrastructure, the bedrock of democracy in this country. And we should thank them, and they should know it.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, you are really hitting things that are so important. I have to applaud you for even articulating that the way you did. This is really something that people need to hear. And we have a podcast that's downloadable, so I hope people listen to this. And we are going into a time period where we're going to need very, very strong leaders. And I am so honored and happy to have you as a leader in this country. What you're doing for our veterans, what you're doing for Texas, what you're doing for our nation is remarkable. And again, I want to be in that theater when they make that movie about your, life, which I hope I see you in the front row, and I'll probably be one of those roles, but I want to be there.
I'm just your ordinary humble servant. But
Yeah.
that's kind of you. But we're all in this together. We cannot in any way continue the American dream if we're not all in the fight together, because there's so many forces trying to counter what this country was started on, even with its difficult beginnings of slavery and the treatment of women and others. Even with that difficult beginning, our Constitution is still the strongest document in the world that indicates we, the people, and of course, we created the Constitution to create a more perfect union. And that's what I think about every single day.
And
Congresswoman, this is Glenda Smith, executive producer, and I want to personally thank you. And I'm so proud of you, and happy Women History Month to you for you being such an effective leader and congressperson.